My parents told everyone I was emotionally unstable after I didn't applaud my sister's engagement at Thanksgiving. Mom whispered, "Don't ruin her moment again," so I stood up and handed out photocopies of what I found in her closet. I'm 36, female, single, and have no kids. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in a quiet neighborhood just a few blocks from the lake. I work full-time as a dental hygienist, have a small circle of friends, and for the most part, I live a very ordinary life. Quiet. Predictable. And that's exactly how my family likes it, as long as I stay in my place. My parents, Lorraine and Mitchell, live in Shorewood, in the house we grew up in. Beautiful, well-kept, classic Midwest upper-middle-class suburb kind of home. My younger sister Sasha, 33F, had been living with them ever since moving back from a failed stint in LA where she was trying to find herself. Sasha has always been my favorite. Not in a vague or occasional way. I mean always. I was the quiet one, the kid who read books and drew in the corners of her notebooks while Sasha was off winning prom queen and having coordinated birthday parties themed down to the napkins. My parents worshipped the ground she walked on, and I was just there. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate her. But I stopped idolizing her a long time ago. As adults, our relationship turned into this uncomfortable balancing act. I made peace with being the other daughter. I focused on my job, my own little apartment, my independence. I didn't attend every brunch. I stopped expecting praise. I showed up for holidays, smiled, brought wine, and tried to keep the peace. But last Thanksgiving, everything exploded. It's hard to even know where to start, because if I jump right into the engagement, it won't make sense. So let me go back a bit. About a year and a half ago, Sasha met Rowan. Rowan was, on paper, everything a parent could want for their daughter. Handsome, well-dressed, polite to a fault, and came from some wealthy family in Evanston. My parents were ecstatic. Sasha had dated a few artists and bartenders, so Rowan was a breath of fresh, stable air for them. I met him for the first time during a 4th of July barbecue at our parents' place, and immediately I felt off. There was something in the way he looked at people, like he was assessing whether they were worth the time. His laugh never quite reached his eyes. He was polite to me, sure, but in that distracted, dismissive way you talk to someone you don't think you'll ever need to impress. Still, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I wasn't close to Sasha, so who was I to judge her partner? A few months later, Sasha moved back home full-time, just until Rowan and I figured out our next step. During this time, I'd swing by my parents' house maybe once every few weeks. Drop something off, check on my dad, maybe bring leftovers or run an errand. One random Tuesday in early November, I stopped by to deliver a humidifier. My dad had been complaining about sinus issues, and I had an extra one from when I had COVID the year before. Nobody was home except for my mom, and she told me to just leave it in Sasha's room. That's when everything began. Sasha's bedroom was still the shrine it had always been, fairy lights, makeup organizers, way too many throw pillows. Her closet door was slightly ajar, and as I leaned down to plug in the humidifier, I saw something odd on the floor. A burgundy velvet box, like the kind you'd keep keepsakes in. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that. But I did. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe old jewelry, notes, prom photos. But inside were envelopes. Bundles of them, neatly stacked and tied with twine. Letters. Every envelope had the same name in the return address corner, Marcus Alton, Minneapolis, Minnesota. My stomach dropped. I picked up the most recent letter, postmarked just 3 weeks earlier. The handwriting was loopy, affectionate. I started reading. When you told me you'd finally leave him after Thanksgiving, I felt like I could breathe again. I miss your voice, your laugh, the way you look at me when no one else is around. I know it's hard. But you promised. I don't know how long I stood there holding it, just rereading that one sentence. I flipped through a few more. They were all the same, romantic, sometimes graphically intimate, occasionally desperate. And none of them sounded like a man who thought he was just a fling. I put everything back exactly how I found it, closed the closet, and left. I couldn't think straight. That night, I googled Marcus Alton. Found him on Instagram. Musician. I live in Minneapolis. About 100 miles away. And, to my surprise, he replied when I messaged him. I didn't go in. I just asked if he knew Sasha. He said, "Of course I do. Why are you asking?" What followed was a 2-hour back and forth where everything unraveled. He and Sasha had been seeing each other for over 2 years. He had no idea she was still dating Rowan, let alone engaged. Sasha had told him she was planning to leave Rowan, but that it would be too cruel to do it before Thanksgiving. She had been planning to dump Rowan after celebrating an engagement with our entire family. I barely slept that night. I kept going back and forth. Should I tell Rowan? Should I confront Sasha? Would anyone even believe me? The answer came during Thanksgiving dinner. We were at our parents' house, 20 people packed into the long dining room. I brought a pecan pie and stayed quiet. Sasha floated around the house like she was royalty. Rowan was glued to her side, shaking hands, making small talk, laughing a little too hard at my dad's jokes. Halfway through dinner, Rowan stood up and clinked his glass. Everyone quieted down. I just want to say how thankful I am to be here, he said. And how lucky I am to have found someone like Sasha. So, we're officially engaged. Wedding in the spring. Applause. Cheering. Champagne glasses raised. My mom squealed. My dad said something about finally having a real son-in-law. Sasha beamed like it was the happiest moment of her life. I sat there frozen. I didn't clap. That's when my mother leaned over and hissed, "Don't ruin her moment again." Again? I whispered, but she didn't explain. I looked at Sasha. She smirked at me. That was it. Something inside me snapped. I had printed 20 copies of Marcus's letters the night before. I wasn't planning to use them. I don't know why I brought them, maybe part of me knew this would happen. I took the envelope out of my purse and stood up. I have something to share too, I said. My voice was shaking. Everyone turned to look at me. I walked around the table and handed out the letters. 1 copy per person. I didn't say anything else. I just handed them out like menus. The room went silent as people started reading. My cousin dropped her fork. My aunt gasped. My dad blinked at the paper like it was written in another language. Sasha stood up and yelled, "What the hell is this?" Rowan grabbed a page and read. Then another. He looked at Sasha, face pale. "Is this true?" Sasha didn't answer. He left. And the room exploded. I didn't stay for the aftermath. As soon as Rowan walked out the front door, Sasha tried to go after him, but my mother physically held her back, not out of protection, but to keep up appearances. My dad kept repeating, "This can't be real. This can't be real," like he thought if he said it enough times, the letters would vanish from everyone's hands. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair, gave one last glance at the table, frozen faces, wine glasses half full, the roasted duck untouched, and I walked out. No one tried to stop me. It was cold outside. Unseasonably cold for late November in Milwaukee. The kind of cold that gets in your teeth. I stood in the driveway for a few seconds, trying to collect myself. My hands were shaking, not from fear but from something else, something like adrenaline or delayed grief. When I got back to my apartment, I sat on the edge of my bed, fully dressed, for hours. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. My phone was silent until nearly 11 p.m., when the messages started rolling in. At first, they were from my mom. "I hope you're proud of yourself. How dare you embarrass your sister like that? You are emotionally unstable and need serious help. If your father has a heart attack tonight, it's on you." Then came the emails, one from her, one from my dad, and even a group email sent to the entire extended family. In it, my parents claimed that I had staged a disturbance at a sacred family event, that I had fabricated documents out of jealousy and resentment, and that Sasha was distraught and traumatized. They said I had a history of unstable behavior, I don't, that I was obsessed with my sister, I'm not, and that I had a long-standing pattern of sabotaging family joy, whatever the hell that means. The worst part was that some people believed them. Cousin Dana unfriended me on Facebook. Aunt Loa sent me a terse one-liner that said, "Get help, Madeline." My own godmother, who had held me when I was a colicky baby and bought me my first pair of earrings, messaged me to say, "This wasn't your place." But not everyone turned. Kayla, my cousin on my dad's side, messaged, "I read every word. I know you didn't fake it. You did the right thing." Then came Aunt Renee. "It was shocking. But you were brave. If any of that is true, the rest of us deserve to know." And then the big surprise, Rowan. He texted me the day after Thanksgiving. I had no idea. I'm sorry for how I treated you that night. You probably saved me from a disaster. We exchanged a few messages after that. He told me he confronted Sasha later that night. She tried to lie at first, but then apparently broke down crying and admitted everything. She claimed she never wanted to hurt him, that she didn't know how to stop, that she was addicted to the attention. Marcus, the man from Minneapolis, found out too. I don't know how, maybe Sasha told him, or maybe Rowan contacted him. Either way, from what Rowan said, Marcus cut her off completely. Blocked her on everything. My parents, however, doubled down. I didn't hear from them again until a week later, when my dad left me a voicemail. We are very disappointed in you. Until you're willing to take accountability and apologize to your sister, we don't think it's healthy to maintain contact. I didn't respond. A few days later, my mother called my job. She told my boss that I was going through a mental health episode and might need some time off. She said it like she was doing me a favor, as if pretending to advocate for me would somehow cover up what she was actually doing, trying to discredit me before I could defend myself. Fortunately, my boss knows me well. She told me about the call in private and said, unless you're actually unwell, I'm not entertaining that. I will forever be grateful to her for that. Sasha, from what I've gathered through the grapevine, spiraled. She tried to reach out to Marcus several times and was shut down every time. She tried to do damage control with Rowan's family. I'm told she drove all the way to Evanston, unannounced, to beg for another chance. They refused to speak to her. Eventually, Sasha moved out of my parents' house and into a studio apartment in Wicker Park, Chicago. Some said it was a fresh start. Others said she was hiding. My mom still refers to it as her sabbatical, like Sasha's some saint on a spiritual retreat and not someone whose lies detonated a family dinner. It's wild. Even after everything, after proof, my parents still treat her like the injured party. I'm the villain in their story. The hysterical, jealous sister who lashed out and ruined Thanksgiving. I've learned not to argue with it. Instead, I've been quietly rebuilding. My relationship with some extended family members has actually improved. A few have apologized for believing the worst. Others still keep their distance, which is fine. I don't need validation from everyone. What I did need was to finally stop being the family scapegoat. I didn't set out to destroy anyone's life. I didn't plan to humiliate Sasha. I certainly didn't want to be at the center of a family implosion. But when someone keeps telling you to sit down and be quiet, even as they prop up the person who's tearing everything apart, there comes a time when silence feels like betrayal. I don't know what will happen next. But I finally feel like I have a voice. And I'm not ready to go back to pretending nothing happened. The weeks after Thanksgiving were quieter than I'd expected. No angry visits. No more group emails. Just an eerie, loaded silence. It was the kind of quiet that feels manufactured, like everyone collectively decided to put the lid back on the boiling pot and pretend nothing had ever spilled over. I still went to work. Still walked the same tree-lined streets from my apartment to the bus stop. Still browsed the frozen section at the Pick and Save on Capitol Drive. But it all felt muted. Like life was happening behind a pane of glass. Then, about 10 days after Thanksgiving, I got a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole, and there she was, Sasha. She looked different. Less polished. Like someone who had cried so hard she gave up on putting herself back together. Her makeup was streaked, and her hair, usually pristine, was tied in a loose bun like she'd stopped caring halfway through doing it. I opened the door but didn't say anything. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stood there a second longer before stepping aside. She walked in slowly, glancing around like she was in unfamiliar territory, though she'd been to my place before. But it wasn't really about space. It was about me. About the fact that for the first time, she was the one out of place. I sat on the edge of the couch. She stayed standing. "I don't even know where to begin," she said quietly. I didn't respond. She looked down at her shoes, then finally said, "I wasn't going to tell you about Marcus. I wasn't going to tell anyone. I thought I could just manage it. Keep the parts of my life that didn't line up from ever touching." I laughed, a single breath through my nose. "You were engaged to one man while planning a future with another." "I know," she snapped, then caught herself. I know. I messed up. I screwed it all up. Silence settled between us again. I waited for her to go on. To explain, to apologize, to try something human and real, but instead, she just hovered there, twisting her fingers in the hem of her sleeve like a kid caught cheating on a test. I don't even know why I did it, she mumbled. Marcus was exciting. He made me feel important. Rowan was safe, and I needed stability. I was trying to build a life that looked good from the outside, and you liked being adored by both, I said flatly. Her eyes flicked up to mine, and I could see the tears starting to pool. Don't cry, I said, a little harsher than I meant to. You always cry when you want people to feel bad for you. That doesn't work on me anymore. She swallowed hard. Her lip trembled, but she didn't let the tears fall. You could have just told the truth. You didn't have to make me the villain, I said. You could have said, yeah, I made a mess and my sister called me out. But instead, you let Mom and Dad tell the entire family I was mentally unstable. Her silence said everything. Did you ask them to say that? I asked. No, she said quickly. I didn't. I swear I didn't. But I didn't stop them either. I nodded. That, I could believe. I stood up. You can stay for 5 more minutes. Then you need to go. She looked startled. That's it? What did you come here for, Sasha? An apology from me? Or did you want me to tell you that it's okay and everything's water under the bridge? No, she said quietly. I just wanted you to know that. I don't hate you. I don't think you're crazy. I know you were right. And I know I hurt you. It hung in the air like fog, heavy and slow. Then she turned and let herself out. A few days after Sasha's visit, I got a call from Aunt Renee. She invited me to a small post-holiday gathering at her house, just a few cousins, aunts, nothing formal. I hesitated. I hadn't been in a room with my family since the Thanksgiving explosion, but something about her voice made me feel like I could handle it. When I got there, it was surprisingly normal. People chatted about the weather, their jobs, holiday sales. There were cheese platters and those little sausages in barbecue sauce and cranberry punch. At one point, Kayla came up to me and just squeezed my hand. Nothing else. Just that. It meant more than words. But then, halfway through the evening, Aunt Lois came over. She had been one of the people who turned on me right after Thanksgiving, sending that "Get Help, Madeline" email that still lived rent-free in my mind. She held her drink like a shield and said, I just wanted to say. I overreacted. You've always been quiet, and I think we all mistook that for something else. I'm sorry. I didn't hug her or say it's okay. I just nodded. That was enough. Later, in the kitchen, I overheard 2 cousins talking in hushed voices. I heard Sasha's trying to get into a new career, one said. Some wellness blog thing? Maybe something with retreats or yoga. She should probably retreat to a monastery after what happened, the other whispered, and they both laughed. It was petty. It was gossipy. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I was the punchline. I wasn't the unstable one in the shadows anymore. I stayed at the party until almost midnight. When I got home, I had a voicemail from my mom. I didn't play it. Not that night. I stared at the blinking light on my machine, then made a cup of tea, got into my pajamas, and slid into bed with my cat curled at my feet. The voicemail could wait. Everything could wait now. The voicemail blinked for days. I didn't touch it. Just let it sit there like an old wound I didn't care to reopen. Whatever Lorraine had to say wasn't going to be anything new. I could write her script in my sleep: denial, justification, backhanded guilt, wrapped up with a bow of faux concern. What I wasn't expecting was the email. 3 days after New Year's, it showed up in my inbox at 7:03 a.m. Subject line: Family healing important. From my mother, of course. The message began exactly as I thought it would, a few polite sentences about the difficult year we'd all had, followed by a veiled scolding about choosing grace over retaliation. Then came the real reason for the email: we're planning a small family brunch in late January. It would mean a great deal if you came. I believe it's time we all come back together and put this unpleasantness behind us. Sasha will be there. Rowan, unfortunately, won't. I read that line 3 times. Unfortunately. As if it were unfortunate that her daughter's 2-year-long lie had caught up with her and her fiancé had dumped her in front of 20 people. What stood out more was the tone. It wasn't pleading. It wasn't even forgiving. It was calculated. They wanted a reset. A do-over. Not because they missed me, but because the optics were bad. Too many people were siding with me now. My silence had become a threat they couldn't predict, and they needed to box it back in. And that's when I realized, this wasn't about closure. It was about control. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I made a phone call. Rowan answered on the second ring. We hadn't spoken since that short text exchange in late November. I knew from Kayla that he'd quietly resumed his life, moved out of the condo he'd shared with Sasha part-time, and gone mostly dark on social media. I was surprised he picked up. "Hi," I said. "It's Madeline." There was a pause. Then, "Hey. I wasn't expecting, are you okay?" "Yeah. I'm fine. I wanted to ask you a question." "Sure. Would you be willing to help me finish what I started?" Another pause. This one longer. "You mean?" I explained my idea. Rowan chuckled, just a little. "That's colder than I expected from you." "It's not cold," I said calmly. "It's clean. I'm not looking to destroy anyone. I just want the truth to land where it belongs." He agreed. And so, I RSVP'd to my mother's brunch. It was held at a small country club just north of Shorewood, a place my father had been a member of since the late 90s. The kind of place with freshly starched linens, a string quartet in the corner, and glasses that never stayed empty for more than 30 seconds. I arrived in a charcoal gray dress. Understated. I wore my hair down for once, a small act of rebellion my mother always hated. "Makes you look like you haven't combed it," she used to say. Perfect. The room was already buzzing. Aunt Lois. Cousin Dana. Even Uncle Calvin, who rarely showed up for anything unless golf was involved. My parents greeted me like diplomats, polite smiles, outstretched arms, not a hint of the venom they'd directed at me just weeks earlier. Sasha arrived 10 minutes later. She wore cream, of course. My mother's favorite color. Her makeup was immaculate again. Her hair styled in soft waves. To an outsider, she looked radiant. To me, she looked like someone trying not to fall apart. I nodded at her. She returned the nod. It was civil. Brunch was predictable. Small talk, mimosas, awkward laughter. For about an hour, everyone behaved as if nothing had happened. And then Rowan walked in. The room stiffened like someone had dropped a glass. My mother stood up, mouth slightly agape. Sasha's face was drained of color. Rowan was dressed sharp but casual. He didn't make a scene. Just walked calmly to the front of the room with a folder in his hand and said, "Sorry for crashing. I was invited." He looked at me. I nodded. He opened the folder and pulled out a series of glossy sheets, passing them to the nearest table. People started to murmur. The pages were screenshots, text messages, photos, and timelines he had put together since we last spoke. Everything he had gathered from his relationship with Sasha, lined up with what I had given him from Marcus. "Just so we're clear," Rowan said, "this isn't vengeance. It's clear. I'm not here to scream. I'm not here to accuse. I just want everyone who's been told a version of events to have the full picture." He turned to Sasha. "I hope you figure out what you want someday," he said. "But you won't get there by lying your way through it." He left before she could respond. I didn't say a word the entire time. I didn't have to. The room slowly turned toward Sasha. People leafed through the pages. A few gave her sharp looks. My mother stood frozen, blinking rapidly as if trying to wake up from a bad dream. Sasha, for once in her life, had nothing to say. I stood, thanked everyone for their time, and left. That was 6 months ago. Since then, the silence from my parents has been refreshing. I haven't spoken to Sasha either, but I've heard through mutual friends that she shut down her blog idea. Apparently, a few people reached out to let her know her wellness journey didn't quite align with her personal scandals. I didn't burn her career down. She did that all by herself. As for me? I've started painting again. I even enrolled in a few night classes, something I'd always wanted to do, but never prioritized. It's strange how much time you get back when you stop trying to hold a broken family together. Some days I think about the Thanksgiving dinner. I wonder if it could have gone differently. But the truth is, I didn't blow anything up that day. I just lit the match next to the gasoline they'd been spilling for years. And when the smoke cleared, all that was left was me, not destroyed, not diminished, just standing. Finally seen. Finally heard. Finally free.